In fact, just film it, pretend he's not there. Would you agree?
That's easy done. That's easy done. I'm assuming I'm not here.
Could have a dinner though, isn't it?
For evening time, take that rule out, but during the day.
He's already said this area is great for hops and for growing.
Okay.
Yeah, this particular area of Belfast is where most of the hops are.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he quickly got on to see if he could show me his car.
Right. You ready? You're going to see it filming.
I'm never ready.
No, for goodness sake. Right. So, brief. This is the start of our trip, isn't it? We're going to do big days tomorrow when we do Basington, which thinks the story we know.
Yeah.
Sounds, and it all builds up to that. But the truth is, he's in war for a year, and I think 8 months of his war. This is pretty much his patch from Popperinge, where we're going to eventually, to here. So this is Vormazila, where the church is. And the other side of Vormazila, about a mile away, is St Elmo. We're going to go there as well. And it's that strip that the Kings Liverpool were fighting for. And I think it said in the book 9 times in the 5-6 months he's here, it changed hands. So we were kind of saying, coming up here, is this British or is it German? It's both. So, but the bit, you've got to take a snapshot of the point in time. And this is March 1916, just leading up to that. So where we stopped here, because almost certainly where you see these gullies are where trenches were. You can see the lie of the land. Yeah. Yeah, agreed. So we think from where, on this particular day, where we're standing is the line of the German trench. So where you would park by the church was in German hands on this day, so it wasn't later on. So everything to my right here is German hands.
There might be a key further down there.
Well, hang on, but this is the West Yorkshire, this is what I wanted. So, yeah, sorry, there's the 3 there, is it? I don't know. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
That's got more than 13.
But anyway, these are the ones. When we do Basington the ground tomorrow, if you remember, we've got Sam's Kings Liverpool on one side of the road and the West Yorkshire on the other side of the road. Only because we were here and I thought, because this is where Sam was fighting. On the 2nd of March, they got St Elmo. So he's in reserve, Sam. But we know they took it. And when I looked at it, he's in the 3rd Division of the 9th Brigade, and the 3rd Division had 5 regiments. the West Yorkshire one of them. So all Sam's story is shoulder to shoulder with the West Yorkshire. So I thought with him being here, so I dug out the West Yorkshire War Diary. It is full of fighting on the 2nd of March, 3rd of March. So clearly they were the front line of West Yorkshire's. Sam's, King's Liverpool were in reserve behind. So knowing there's a cemetery here, I thought, well, I wonder if there's any West Yorkshires on the right. So these are the guys who would have been fighting alongside Sam that died on the day he was in readiness. We're going to walk down the canal bank now. So I just thought while we were here, we should pay respect to them. They've shared that together, these two buildings. We'll see the Northumberland. He's found the dugout.
Is he?
Or he's pulling our leg.
What have you found?
The thing.
What thing?
The constantly high.
Alright,
There we go.
hold that.
Yes, I'm expecting you still to film.
Yeah, 200 quid is it still?
I've got it for you.
Oh, did you, eh? Really?
Yeah, no,
You as bad as me?
for you. There was a guy called Mr.
I think you should be down there. Watch your head.
Right, see you later.
Yeah, definitely watch your head.
Shine your light. You can talk to them.
Yeah. I want to do
Well,
360.
I think you three should all go in there, and I'm going to do an interview with you in the dugout. Yeah, no, I mean that. Sorry, should we check that? Does that fit the...
Here we are at Kingsway in Vormazile in one of the dugouts that Sam was most likely in. I don't think anyone's been in here since Sam. I think we're the first to find it.
No, somebody's been at this dates on the wall.
There's dates on the wall. Definitely.
Good find.
Yeah?
And do you think you'll ever get out?
No.
But I think the bit of the history here, looking at this
would be under
crater
the German
here,
lines.
this
The
would be, this is right
Yeah.
on that line. So we are right between British and German lines here. But what happened on the date when he's here, which is December the 19th, and I'll mention that at Talbot House because there's an entry there. Is it really? Oh right, that's got a significant piece of history. there was a massive gas attack, a German gas attack here. Do you remember on the film? And we said, I think I showed a map of it.
And the wind blew
And
back.
the wind blew back.
Yeah.
Right, well, we do know, I've got the numbers here somewhere. Well, this is what it said in the war diary. From here, so it's a German, just behind us, the German front line. 5 o'clock in the morning, released chlorine on the British front line. And by that roundabout, we know is where Sam was. Via cylinders, you've seen these things, so not shells, just let these cylinders off, the wind's blowing the right way. Troops were ready for it because they'd got prisoners who said what was going to happen. At 6:15 a.m, the second phase with phosgene gas shells I mentioned earlier. The gas mask are no good with this phosgene, so the numbers say 1,000 incapacitated and 120 deaths. Now Sam's right; he would have been right on the fire line of that, but there's no. We've not got his service record, so we don't know. He could have been affected and recovered without service record. We're playing a guessing game. He's certainly gassed here, and it says 2:15 in the afternoon. German heavy bombardment for 2 days, and Sam, war diary doesn't say Sam. It says the King's Liverpools retired to Popperinge at the end, which is where we're going to end the day. So it's kind of a nice point to get after Warm Zero, but of his story. But this was in December 1915. On March the 27th, 1916, these mines were lit up. So there were 6 mines, and it just killed so many. But there's another piece of history. This is Sam's bit of history. But if I look in that direction, and it's on the map here, so 10-minute walk in that direction, I don't think we're close to Blackburn. I only know that because this is a Wilford school story I shared with you. Their soldier was in this area, Blackburn, so I read all about that, and it said Adolf Hitler was there because he was a corporal in the First World War.
Okay.
So unfortunately, when I say
set this up
Survived
over.
it.
Yeah, they didn't get in.
exactly, exactly,
History would have been changed, wouldn't it?
yeah, just a bit. But I think this is quite a significant bit of Sam's history. You know, he's gassed here, and interestingly, when the 27th of March, when these craters, when the mines went off, 2 days before the King's Liverpool retired, so they must have known the clearing people out in the area. They're going to then let these off come back in. So you three guys should get by with the pictures. So can the old relic stand by the old relic? Yeah. Go on, Andy, we'll put you on that. Behind it, yeah.
I'm sure she's not.
Okay. I'll probably top the top off. I normally do. I never see tops of churches. Okay.
on July 1st, 1915, the soldiers came here before being called onto the battlefield. And they used to stay here for 4 to 6 days. There was always 8 soldiers in these trenches at a time before they were rotated somewhere else. Over here. This wall is called parapet, and this one is called parado. So which one is this?
Oh, we're not trying it.
Parapet? Okay, parado. So this one is way shorter than this wall. Back then in 1916, soldiers used to peek out of this entire wall in order to look at the battlefield. Parado was way taller, and so this wall was used to cover their silhouette as they were observing the battlefield. That being said, they weren't targeted that easily when they used to observe the battlefield.
Oh, sorry, where was the front line? Was this the front line?
So this was the front line, and do you see the statue and the cemetery over here?
Yeah.
So between that, this is the German front line also.
Yeah.
Now, this exact field used to be full of barbed wires. Behind us, you can see some of the barbed wires that are left. And so that morning, it was pretty intense, and we'll talk more about it shortly. But before I do, we need to talk about the game plan. There was 2 main tasks that had to be done, and the first one had to be completed by the British forces. Their job was to destroy all of the barbed wires that used to be on this field over here. And so for 7 days and 7 nights, they had used the machine guns in order to create bombardments, in order to destroy all of these barbed wires. And so for 7 days, 7 nights, constant bombardments, loud noises. Now after those days and nights, they came back and they were confused because all of the barbed wires were still intact. Now, they decided they would have to destroy all of the barbed wires using their own. The devastation that had happened that morning of the July 1st. Now, this is the furthest that the soldiers had made it to, and you can imagine how it's not that far of an advancement. Do you see the small slope and crest over here? Now that's where soldiers used to huddle there in order to hide themselves from the bullets that were coming their way. So the wait time in order to be rescued was of minimum 13 hours. There was a soldier who was rather new. He did not know the territory. As he was marching, he got shot at. And so he stayed in no man's land for 5 days. On the 5th day, he said, I'm sick and tired of being in no man's land. I don't care which side it is, whether it's the German side or even the Allies. I'll just get up and hopefully I get rescued. Thankfully, he went to the Allies' side. He was treated and he was on roll call the next day. But it just shows the things that the soldiers had to endure in no man's land.
Right, this is for you, Sam. We now know all the horrors you went through when you were out here with your friends. And I'm pleased to say I've been really proud of you.
You've been good.
H is trying to join the Zoom.
Oh no, just give up, Dad.
It does seem ironic that the people who are here are sitting looking at a screen.
We
On
feel
Zoom.
like
We could have
we-
stayed at home.
No, we feel like we're missing out on the Zoom crowd.
Yeah.
That's great.
Right.
We're recording.
Are we getting paid? Are we being paid to be in this?
Oh, yeah, I'll sort that out then. Did you just say if you want to clip that somewhere? So it's thanks. Yeah.
Don't trip over that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I can stick in a pocket. Yeah. So this is Basington Underground, which is, there's almost no place. Oh, sorry. And wait, my capable assistant is showing you Basington Underground approach. You can carry on like that. I like this. So, so at these crossroads, any of you have seen the maps? These crossroads, thank you, sir, is where on my right, so where we're parked, all the land here is where Sam and Charles and the 13th Kings Liverpool, just before they went into battle, were in the fields here. So all this for about 1,000 yards, it said in the diary. So it must have been an incredible sight. And on the other side of the road, here are the West Yorkshire Regiment. We haven't walked. We were going to do this. We're a bit behind the clock, and we thought we'll suss it all out for you, and we'll do it really clean. But we're seeing it for the first time as well. So probably nice to do it that way. So crikey, we're actually looking at the ground in front of me is where Sam and sadly Charles would have been coming up here 3:20 in the morning, dark with a full moon. I mean, how terrifying, knowing that in front of them in the village there were all sorts of horrors waiting, artillery and machine gun fire, you name it. But at this point it's quiet. There's no, they did this bit, said really quietly, nothing happening. The artillery bombardment that you normally get before battle didn't happen to start with because they wanted surprise, which is most unusual. They normally try and blast the place to bits. What they did on this occasion is, we know the tragic story here. They did that pretty much as the men got to the top here, and then we know they went too soon, and that's why so many of them died. And we've just come from Tietful, where they're named. That was really emotional to see. I mean, Charles, we will go to his grave. He's one of only 7 that they found the body. All the others are, just never found them. So their names there. So you can see the ground rising here. And if you're good at measuring, so from where we parked the car to the farm, 3/4 of the way up was the first trench. If you can get that in your head, roughly.
been quite daunting coming up this hill.
Oh, yeah. It has started raining here, guys.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you, sir. Oh.
It's more your camera than you.
Exactly. I bet the BBC don't do this. So the time it's taken us would have been a similar experience, but what a terrifying one. So what wouldn't you say we're about? Right, we're not zooming, so this bit should be perfect. And I do hope you got enough out of what we did. I'm sure you did, to see where the King's Liverpool started on this fateful day and the march up the hill. We've all commented how this rise of the hill, how terrifying it must be, because they would have been in a dip. They'd have been very conscious of being hidden, and then all of a sudden, you know, and bearing in mind this is meant to be a night attack, but there's a bright full moon out there, so they'd have been so visible, and we know they were being shot at immediately by the machine guns. So the bit of the story I'm pretty sure from what you're saying you didn't get was from the second trench. So Jeff's just filming now. We're pretty much at the second trench, and you can see the lie of the land is starting to come down. So they should not have come. This bit we're doing now is the bit they just should not have done. They shouldn't have advanced. They should have waited in the first trench, and after an hour, the hope was that they'd have obliterated the German forces at the second trench and beyond. So what we're now going to do is the bit that in there, I think the phrase was, in their excitement, the men carried on because they took the first trench without any fighting, beyond and into the village. And we know when they're in the village, there are 125 fatalities. I think there were 436 casualties, of which we know Sam was one and recovered, but God bless him, Charles didn't, and he lost his life here. I'm pretty sure, because Charles is buried, we're going to go to his cemetery, because he's buried. Jeff, I'm going to get this time so you can see. I think, pretty sure that Charles was killed by the machine gun. The fact that he's buried about 15 minutes drive away, and he's, sadly, so many of those men were just blown to bits. I am obviously guessing, but I think there's every chance that he was mortally wounded by the machine gun fire and then taken away. Gosh, they're all horrible stories, aren't they? But it's just nice to know a little bit more of what your family went through, what your family member went through. But we do know in the case of most of the men, and highly likely Sam, they were walking now, they went into the village under this hour of a massive British artillery bombardment, which is why the clues in the numbers, 118 of those men, only 7 have a grave. 118, they never found their remains, because they were, there's no nice way of saying it, they were just blown to bits. So I think that's the horrendous side, and it kind of tells you the reality of what really did happen here. Any of you who are on the Zoom that we did telling the story will remember me reading out Major Seaton's view of it all, and he was kind of saying, you know, no unforeseen circumstances, it was a success. How horrendous is that? I still can't believe that. Right, so we've now walked down to the edge of the village. The village was this little triangle, so this is the edge of the triangle here. The pointy bit would be towards the road. So we're going to walk in there. But the two things to point out to you are the crossroads in the distance was the target for any of you. Just let the cars come through, Jeff, don't keep coming. For any of you who know how much I love T-Mapper, that locates exactly where your soldiers were in the war, you get these coordinates that tell you exactly, and in the King's Liverpool case, their objectives at the end of the day were the crossroads there. So they were to take the village on our right. It's now just a farm. Jeff's just swinging around so you can see it. The crossroads were their ultimate aim. Now what happened was so disastrous, and we'll walk in a minute, but the commander of the King's Liverpool, Lieutenant Colonel Gibbons, was wounded on a couple of occasions, and he was finally mortally wounded just on the other side. So where you can see the wire, the telegraph poles, just on the other side in the field there. So I'm thinking he must be buried. I can check that. So he got comms back to say the men are being absolutely massacred. We now know by our own artillery they needed help, and the reserve battalion was the 1st Northumberland Fusiliers, and they came to help, and actually the village was secured. So the war diaries say it's a success. It's interesting, isn't it, what you regard as success, but it was taken, but a huge loss of life. So we're walking into the village. Oh yeah, look at that. Well, there you go. Somebody's been here before us. Private John Hubble. Northumberland Fusiliers. I was just saying that the Northumberland came and rescued, and won over in the end, won it. So he's lost it. They were still hammered, even though it was a success. Oh, how lovely that someone's come to remember him. I just think these are lovely connects. The fact that we've got the UK and Canada connected with this story makes it more, I just think, so personal and so emotive. So this now would be where the soldiers were coming into the middle here. There are houses, really all corners here. Snipers on the tops of the houses, machine gun. It was deadly. And for this hour, from 3:30 in the morning till 4:30, horrendous British artillery attack. So these guys have got no chance. It's just a really truly awful story. So when Lieutenant Giddens asked for help and then the Northumberland Fusiliers came in, there was just hand-to-hand fighting. The houses needed clearing, there was no easy way to do it. Machine guns needed taking out, which they got, but they lost a lot of men doing it. And it looks to me, reading about it, that the heaviest attack was coming from where I'm pointing now, so east of the village, where you can see the trees, back of the building. There were farms over there, and there were at least half a dozen machine gun camps from the Germans, so that would have given fierce and murderous fire. So they had to take that out, and it was achieved, at great loss of life, but bit by bit. And they did take a lot of prisoners. I think they got 40 German prisoners from here. So you can look at some stats and say, as Major Seaton did, it was a success. But not in my book, And sadly, as often happened in the First World War, there's not many days later, the Germans reversed what happened here. So much of this fighting was just yo-yoing a mile or so in the middle of nowhere in these fields, and you do just stand here and think, what for? So we'll wander in. You can see the modern bit. Obviously, it wasn't like that in the day. The last bit of our filming here, we just wanted you to see how the centre of the village is, but you get a feeling of the size of it. It is only to the trees that I'm pointing out in the distance, and we just walked from the side road there. There's no distance here. This is such a tiny little village. We met the owner of the farm, and he told us that this was a proper village back in the day, but everyone's moved out, and of course the place was devastated. We're just looking at the little barn here, and we think that the beams here, I think what happens often in these places is they rebuild with the damaged goods, you might say. I suspect that the frames there are from the time, but obviously everything else in here was built after the war. But just to do a 360, Jeff, it's worth just while the weather's so beautiful. Because if nothing else, we're talking about the history of it, and yes, it looks different today than it did in 1916, but we are standing at the epicentre of the fighting, where we know Sam was wounded. Fortunately, he recovered from his wounds, and tragically we know that Charles didn't. But so I'm just so humbling for me, it's so humbling I should say for me, to be able to do this for you all and be able to tell the story, not just in words or a Zoom that we've done from home, but to actually be here at Basingstown-le-Grand and remember all of the men on the 14th. We will send you the film. We went to Tietful, where those who had no grave are named, and that was just incredibly emotional. I'm really proud that Harry said some fine words there on behalf of Sam, so I think you'll all be glad. And we're going to finish the day off now. We're going to go to the cemetery where Charles is buried. Keep your fingers crossed we get a signal. Okay, so I'm going to give you a dear old tease, man. Jeff is our hero because he's the cameraman.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yes. There you go. No, you need the brolly. I want the brolly. No, it's all right. We've all got a role here, haven't we? Okay.
Oh, wow.
Right, so you can all see me and you can all hear me.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm here.
Okay, fantastic. Right, we're gonna go. Oh, we're gonna go and see Charles's grave. But we thought what would be really nice to do is actually show you kind of how the cemeteries are, and we'll walk across. So we'll kick off that if you came here knowing that Charles was buried here, but you didn't know where he was, you would come to the little register. Every cemetery has one of these. So you can see here for Dive Cox. So it's really easy. It's all alphabetical. So we're looking for Charles Key. Now hopefully you can see him in the book. Does that come through clear?
Wrong page, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're looking at James and Jackson.
All right, sorry.
The other side of the
Oh.
page. Yeah, yeah.
You know I said the cameraman was good. I take that
Yeah.
back.
It's because I'm looking at the postage stamp bit again.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see him now.
You got him now, right?
Yeah.
So you can see there it's telling us he's in 1C7. Thanks.
Right.
Cheers, Kaz. So we now know where we're heading. There's a map and we know where we're heading for. But we'll just take, there's a couple of features on any cemetery. I don't know whether you feel it, but Jeff, you just sort of swing around. It sounds strange to say they're beautiful, but I do think they're really beautiful. You can see, you know, the flowers, they're so well looked after. So it's nice to know that he's honoured, respected for where he's buried.
Do you know how many graves are there, Chris?
Oh.
Hang on.
Yeah, Andy's just counting.
I thought it might have been
Yeah.
at the front of that book.
It will be.
So if you don't know,
Harry.
it doesn't matter. I thought you just might have known.
Hang on, Andy's just added them. 558.
Wow.
Right, so I'm just going to show, we're going to walk, I'm just going to show you a couple of things that in every Commonwealth War Grave Cemetery, there's a cross of sacrifice. So you can see the cross, I mean, for obvious reasons, the cross, there was an awful lot of discussion. Jeff's umbrella's just blown inside out. There's a lot of discussion about what it should have. There's all sorts of fables that have to cover. But obviously, the option was the right one, and the cross was chosen. There's more going on in here. If you look at the figure inside, there's a dagger pointing down, and that was done to signify the end of battle. It's a very poignant thing. And you get these in, I say, in all the Commonwealth War grave cemeteries. So we're going to wonder, because of the size of this, they don't all have a stone of remembrance. We do have here. All the graves. I always think it is so sad when you look at all the graves here. All these brave men. All fought, died on the Somme, didn't come home. Putting up every time.
Yeah.
This stone of remembrance, and it's very now then they liveth forevermore. I don't think you could have anything nicer could you to say. There's a story behind this, and Angela, we've got a connection for this because they asked Rudyard Kipling would he come up with some words, and they particularly asked Rudyard Kipling because his own son was died in the First World War. I think that was on the Somme as well. But the connection we've got, Angela, is Rudyard Kipling's son who died was in the Irish Guards.
Yeah.
So we've got connections to our fathers. So brilliant connection for us. But when I do a lot of these talks to school children and school children, that phrase really resonates with them. It kind of says everything that they should be thinking of. And it's really great that we've got one in the cemetery. I thought there were 1,000, but obviously not. Okay, so we're now gonna find Charles. We'll follow you, Kaz. We're going to find Charles's grave.
Can I just say, whilst you're walking, if you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Kipling, this is Elaine, Charles's granddaughter. Kipling's son was one of the very few of the Allied troops of the British troops that were actually brought home to be buried.
That's right,
he was one of the very, very few that was actually buried in this country. The vast majority, 99.9% of the fallen were buried in France and Belgium.
Right. Okay, I'll wait here. So here's Charles' grave. One moment for you all.
Oh.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, I never knew him, and my mother was only 4 when he died, or when he was killed. And her knowledge of him, her recollection of him is very, very vague, just as part of a unit of soldiers doing drill at the back of their house in Liverpool. No, nothing more specific about him. But obviously, if he hadn't existed, then I wouldn't be here, so we've got to be grateful for that. And who knows what turn my mother's life would have taken if he hadn't come back from the war. If he hadn't survived, her life might have been totally different, and she might not have met my father, and again, I might not be here. So, none of us knows how life's going to turn out. And the same for Jennifer, obviously, if my parents had never met, she obviously wouldn't perhaps be here. So, but all I can say is thank you, Chris, for doing this for us. And I'm so privileged to know you so vicariously, and that you've taken the trouble to do this for us. It really is a great honour to be there, albeit on this Zoom thing. So I don't know if Jennifer wants to say a few words as well, but thank you is my main word of appreciation.
Oh, thanks for those words.
Thanks, Chris. It's just been such a lovely, wonderful experience doing this with you, and we're just so grateful for the time that you took to do this for our family. And we're here today because of you to honor the life of Charles Keane, who left his home and his loved ones and his family in Liverpool, and to fight for king and country. And because of you, Chris, we arrive here today taking a journey through time, and with a much greater understanding of what Charles, his life and the last few months of his life and what his experiences were. And we're here because of you to honor his life and to recognize the depth of his sacrifice. And his story, our Charles, is you know, one of the many stories of so many families whose loved ones didn't come home and who paid the ultimate sacrifice for the future generations, our generations, our future children, grandchildren. We give thanks to him and to you. We know that they fought for the lives that we're privileged to live today. And, you know, our family and our loved ones who've thrived because of the depth of his sacrifice. So to him, we're eternally grateful for the lives that we live today.
Listen, I'm glad I can speak now after that too. Just thank you so much for that. It means a lot to us, the five of us. We've been so fortunate to be able to do this. It has been, as Harry said, just so special being here, you know. But so I'd like to finish with our tribute, the five of us, to Charles. So I'm going to read the two verses whilst we look at Charles's grave that I think fits so well for this moment. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end, against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. Going down with the sun, and in the morning, we will recall. And a piece of you all, we're leaving with Charles, so hopefully you can see.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, that's lovely.
That is lovely.
Thank you.
Oh, that's lovely. Well done, Chris.
Thank you,
I'm
Chris.
really glad it's raining, because I was thinking, how am I going to put this in the ground if it was a boiling hot day? So,
The ground's nice and soft now.
Are they poppies growing right next to the grave there?
I think the roses.
Are they roses? Oh, I can't
they?
see them very well.
They do look like poppies. I thought they were, Ange.
I thought they were poppies, yeah.
Yeah, I
thought
did.
maybe come out specially for the visit today.
Just to comment on, we're looking at, I think it's great to, I mean, I've covered it in all sorts of sellotape and plastic so it can rain to its heart's content on it. But one thing I should have pointed out is, and many of the graves here don't have it, but the mother and father or spouse, depending on their circumstances, were always given the chance to put some words on the grave. Loads of them didn't, for all sorts of reasons. A lot of them were just too emotional. They just couldn't come round and do it all. But actually Charles did, so he's got rest in peace. Was just so that those words have come from his family. You look at the Commonwealth now, grave. I mean, I think just looking up the line here, Jeff, look at the line of flowers when you look. This is a great perspective of it.
Yeah.
They're so well kept.
Yeah.
Beautiful, it's
really
stunning.
To be proud of, isn't it?
Totally. And Jennifer, we asked the Commonwealth War Graves staff at Ypres last night, do you pay in your taxes to look after these? And the answer is yes.
Oh, fantastic.
But what they said is there are 6 countries, which is the UK, I forget them now, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa and India. And everyone pays dependent on how many graves are being looked after. So we all do contribute towards looking after these places, which I was so pleased when I heard that.
Yeah.
Finally, some way that they spend the tax money that I agree with.
Yes.
Exactly. Just for once, yeah.
Right, so I think we're ready to go and get warm again, but I think we're going to end here at Charles's grave. So thanks for being so patient with us and sharing the journey.
We can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much for your
Chris,
time and energy and doing this for our family.
The job you've done, Chris, is amazing.
You're welcome.
The cameraman is Laurie.
Oh yeah, we're saying the cameraman saying goodbye.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And a goodbye from H.
Bye, love.
Hi, Harry.
Thank you so
Andy.
much.
Caroline.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
occupied for quite some time. However, it still gives you a good impression of what kind of fighting is happening here, especially considering right here is the German first position. So it's only a 25-meter distance, which is so incredibly close that you have to, you can imagine how tempting it would be to actually just, oh, well, I'm already down here, I might as well dig over to the other side. On the day of the battle, April 9th, 1917, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Canadian divisions are successful. They capture their objectives before the end of the day. The 4th Division, which I said had that particularly unpleasant job of actually getting the ridge itself, will only reach its objective on April 10th, so one day late. However, it's a general success. That being said, one of the main reasons that this site has been chosen is because April 9th, 1917 is Canada's bloodiest day in military history. So there would be 2,400 deaths on the first day alone, and over the 4 days of the battle, there would be over 10,600 casualties, and 3,600 of those would be deaths. So it's very, very costly when you consider that there are 30,000 infantry soldiers and over a third are casualties. All still there, good, good. So welcome to the Grange subway. It is one of 13 that are built parallel to one another in preparation for this attack. So the Canadian forces arrived between late October and early November 1916, so 6 months before the battle. And they will help with the construction of these tunnels, and we'll talk a bit more about the construction soon. But altogether, these 13 tunnels are 10 kilometers long. So this is a massive, massive series of tunneling. Though there have been some significant changes to the tunnels from the time of the war. So firstly, we don't have these lovely cement pillars that we have here now. They would have been self-reinforcing, or they would have had a wooden beam. That's definitely not going to stand the test of time or the test of modern day health and safety regulations. We've got our cement here now. They've also been enlarged quite a bit. They would have been 1 to 1.5 meters wide and 2 to 2.5 meters tall, so quite a bit smaller. You can also imagine that you're traveling with a massive backpack weighing about 30 kilos or 60 to 70 pounds, and it's going to be almost entirely dark. When you have tunnels, it makes it possible to have some of the officers actually so very much closer to the front. So this is going to help a lot with the communication and the preparation. The tunnels were all dug by hand. They were dug by professional mining companies. This one in particular was dug by a Welsh mining unit. And to put into perspective how big this operation is, for every cubic meter that they dig, they have 200 sandbags worth of chalk. So you have to take every single one of those bags, you've got to hide it in a crater hole and cover it up. So even though the infantry are not actually digging themselves, there's a lot of other work that is involved. And there's 1 cubic meter, but each tunnel is about 2 meters tall, and there's 10 kilometers of it. So this is a ridiculous amount of chalk just for these tunnels alone.
So I'm going to ask you three guys individually kind of what the trip's meant to you. So Harry, you first. This is your granddad's story, but obviously we did Charles as well. What are your thoughts of the last 2 days?
Well, the whole trip was brought to life. The conditions he was in, where he was, and it was particularly moving to walk, to walk in his footsteps yesterday where he took the village. And it's interesting to see the contrast between the two memorials in particular. This one is absolutely spectacular. But to be surrounded by the original craters, it's been part of history. Yeah, real educational visit, Chris.
Oh, Kaz?
Yeah, educational for me. I don't think I really understood what happened, and I think making it personal makes it a lot more interesting, and you take it a lot more in and immersing yourself in it.
Yeah.
Chris?
Okie cokes. Andy?
All of that. And the one thing that I didn't probably appreciate is just how beautifully preserved everything's been, and how well taken care of all of the facilities, and how beautiful the monuments are. Everywhere is absolutely immaculate to go to. And I think were that not the case, it would sort of be quite sad, sort of expected. But it's so nice that 100 years on, it's almost everywhere has just been so beautifully preserved. Yeah.
Oh, so can we have a collective goodbye then?
Right. Goodbye to everybody.